Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel. How many of you have met a narcissist who's a know-it-all? How many of you, actually, better question would be, have any of you met a narcissist who's not a know-it-all? So since most of them are, let's talk about how to deal with a narcissist who is a know-it-all. Now, you know this person, right? You tell them, I don't know, you're going on vacation. And they tell you, I've been there. I know this place. The only place to stay is here. The only place is to eat is there. You're not even going at the best time of year. You know, when you're telling someone you're going to buy a house and they say, blah, 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 you must do this for the loan. You must use my loan guy. You have to buy here. I've owned my house here for so long and I know so much, blah, blah. Or you're talking about something at work, and some person jumps in with some obscure technical detail that is barely relevant, but proceeds to try and overwhelm the meeting with all of their technical smartness. Or you're just talking in a group of people with someone, a bunch of people. You're talking about something, just making idle conversation, and the narcissist in the group sort of rolls their eyes contemptuously as though you are all uncivilized rubes, like, ugh, please, nobody does that anymore. That kind of nonsense. I have no doubt that any of you watching this video could come up with dozens and dozens of examples of how you've had the experience of the know-it-all narcissist. In some ways, it's sort of built into the model of narcissism. The arrogance of narcissism is pretty universal. So most of them are know-it-alls, as a matter of course, but some are much worse than others. Grandiose narcissistic folks are often know-it-alls just because they're so prototypically narcissistic. Vulnerable narcissistic people kind of do it in this grudging way, like, they think everyone is so stupid, but that their great genius is somehow unappreciated. But as a rule, narcissistic people do believe that they're smarter and better than other people. I know that deep down they don't really believe that, but superficially they do. So they either dominate conversations, become contemptuous about what other people know or don't know, or they feel compelled to give you unsolicited advice or their wisdom or knowledge. However, some are much worse than others, and enough of you have experienced the difference. The know-it-allness of narcissistic folks is on its own spectrum. So what do you do with this? How do you navigate the know-it-all narcissist? And how do you even cope with it? Because it's very, very annoying, frustrating, and exhausting. And even if you're really tired, it can be angering. Listen, the simplest guidance I could give you would be don't engage. But what does that mean here? Let's break this down by means of a few scenarios. In any of these situations, you have to assess your appetite for the fight. Some of you might be conflict averse and annoyed and just mentally detach. Some of you may not take them on when they're being a know-it-all about a foolish conversation. But for example, if the narcissistic person is sharing misinformation or information that's problematic, you may feel compelled to step in to address the misinformation, or because you're just so tired of watching them railroad over people. You may also genuinely know more than them and want to correct it. It's just going to depend on the situation. So let's take a look at a few situations. So first situation. So let's say if it's something where you do know much more than the narcissistic person. As I see it, you can hold on to your proverbial psychological punch until the very end. Let them yammer on their cuckoo nonsense, and then depending on your mood, you can wait till the end, get them against the ropes, and then you can smack them down with technical language or other information that only someone with expertise would have. Now, this is not without risk. A risk of this approach is that to the untrained eye, you may look like an a-hole to other people. It's not fair, but since most people may not get that the yammering on narcissist is narcissistic, they might look at you as having some form of unfair advantage over the narcissist, even though the narcissist is a blowhard idiot. But it may be a whole candy from a baby scenario. If you do know more than them, and others do know that you do, it's a power move to keep your mouth shut and let the narcissistic person dig themselves into a hole. I know as a psychologist, I often get stuck in situations with some mild to moderate narcissistic folks who will want to barrage me with some new age wellness prattle. And because they do not listen, they may not know my area of focus in the field. My play at these times when people are talking this kind of cuckoo talk is to sort of nod politely as though I was listening to a client, and then find a way to gracefully exit the conversation and waste no more time. But I certainly don't try to sort of get one over on them. The second scenario is you're watching the narcissist dominate someone in a conversation. And in this case, perhaps you know as much as the narcissistic person. Again, it comes down to how much of a disruptor you want to be. You may feel bad for the person who's either getting overwhelmed or is getting the bad information, or is just having to listen on and on to the narcissistic person's BS. It may actually be useful if and when you can get some time with the other person in the conversation alone afterwards to provide clarification or even make a comment on that was not okay for that person to overwhelm them, and just check in and see if they're okay. The third scenario is that you know nothing about the topic and the narcissist is just wah-wah-wahing away about it. At those times, a little bit of a mild dissociation could do wonders. If there is no polite way to step away, a work meeting, being stuck at a table, at a wedding, that kind of thing, then sort of get lost in your surroundings, get caught in the fine art of description, drinking it in, and focusing on the details as though you were going to describe what you're seeing to someone else. You may want to tell them to shut the hell up about the random hotel they stayed in or how much they know about some stupid Chardonnay. But again, choose your battles. If you are alone, and if you can get up and leave, I highly recommend it. But if you're stuck, lose yourself in the setting. Try having a side conversation with someone else about something else. And the fourth sort of situation when you're with the know-it-all narcissist, learn from it. The pompous, pontificating, arrogant narcissist is never going to stop. They will always be the know-it-all at the holiday table, the bar, the business meeting. I have seen it where a humble person who lived in a country for many years or really had been embedded in the culture will sit quietly and dignified, while a narcissistic person who spent a week in that place holds themselves as the authority on that place. And learning from it means that you may avoid avoidable events where you know they will be present. You don't get sucked into conversations with them. You know they're going to be at a party. You might say, yeah, I'm going to take a pass. I can't even deal. You might use their monologues when they're mawing along as a time to practice your breathing exercises and go to your mental happy place. But it all goes back to that eternal question that relates to all coping with narcissistic folks of, do you engage or not? Do you take the fight or not? The basic rules there are read the room. Will you be disrupting an event that is meaningful to someone, for example, someone's birthday party? Will other people end up feeling more uncomfortable? Is there even an easy escape for you? Remember, if you think that you will somehow change or illuminate the narcissistic person or deliver some insight upon them so they will not do this know-it-alling, obviously, there you're going to be sorely disappointed. That's never going to happen. You may want to push back on frank misinformation they're sharing with someone, like they're telling someone you're going to need a passport to go to Hawaii if you're a U.S. citizen. Like you're all going like, no, you don't. Or you may want to be the voice of reason in the midst of a snobby tirade, a person blah-blahing about how the only way to eat is to scour the farmer's market every Saturday, and if you get produce from a supermarket, then you're a Philistine. I mean, you can then step up and say, ooh, I love me a supermarket apple. I mean, you can get your little digs in where you will. But the know-it-allness of narcissistic folks makes it impossible to have anything but a one-sided conversation with them. They are not interested in you. And being a know-it-all is just one more form of domination by them. There's no point in interacting and engaging because it's like a sinking ship. And listen, every so often, maybe just for sport, I get a little bit of lift from being able to shut down a narcissist with some big words and my bookie knowledge. I know it's bitchy, but I ain't perfect. Do what you need to do to feel sane in the midst of these conversations. And when you don't want to do that, use these one-sided conversations as a way to sort of mentally cut out. And one last thing, just as a reminder, wanted to take a moment to let you know a new book comes out in February. I'm very excited about it. Would love it if you give it a look. The pre-order link is in the video description. Thanks.